studio because I have two wonderful people. My co-host is Rafael Ortaz and his guest is Arthur Benvenisti. And the reason we're here is all about music, the Kol Sephardic Choir, which Rafael directs, and the background of Ladino, the language and the people who spoke it. Now, it's amazing because in this program of ours, Jolly Jam, with What's Your Viewpoint, we also want to get feedback from the audience. And throughout the program, what we have been discussing so far has led us to believe that the Marano Jews or the crypto Jews or the conversos seem to feel quite isolated. Is that correct, Art?
Yes.
And what would one of the reasons be that they felt so isolated, and why did they feel like they were part of an extremely small religion, that there were not many Jews in the world?
Well, the ones that were in isolated villages in Portugal, even in the American Southwest, saw very few Jews. Ashkenazi Jews moved out west in the 1850s and after the Civil War. But for the most part, they settled in the big cities. So the crypto Jews had very little contact with them. Oh, by the way, one odd thing, we found crypto Jews playing the dreidel, and they play it with, instead of Hebrew, it's Spanish, but it's the same game. We wonder where they got this. The Sephardic...
Savivon.
Yeah, the Sephardic Jews never had the dreidel. Well, we don't know where they got it, but the theory is they saw Ashkenazi Jews playing it around Hanukkah, which was roughly a week before Christmas, and they thought, well, maybe this is a Jewish practice that we should take up, so they play it.
How did they know that the Ashkenazi Jews were Jews just like they were, because didn't their appearance look different?
Yeah, but they were openly Jewish. They had synagogues and...
Why was it that the Ashkenazi Jews could be open, but the Sephardic had to keep it a secret? What was the difference?
Tradition.
They had one set of tradition for these types of Jews and another set of traditions for those types of Jews?
The crypto Jews lived in secret, and they were brought up with this secret.
So, in other words, just because many years ago they were brought up living in secret, they continued to live in secret, even though after a while there was no more threat of the Inquisition, they still maintained their secrecy?
Yes, they're coming out now, but there's no official government persecution of them, either here or Mexico, but if you live in a small town, there are social constraints. If the town is all Catholic, you can be ostracized. We've had crypto Jews from little villages in northern New Mexico who don't like the fact that we are publicizing crypto Judaism because they don't want their neighbors to know. Most of the ones that we meet, that I've interviewed, have moved into the big cities, and they're rather open.
So there's still a stigma of shame or guilt or some sort of negative aspect to it?
I wouldn't call it shame or guilt, it's persecution.
They still feel like people want to kill them?
They still feel, well, it's social customs and traditions are hard to change. You're brought up in a tradition that is hundreds of years old where you have to keep things secret. And it's changing now, but it's slow to change. And as I said, those that have moved to the big cities, if you're in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or El Paso, they're quite open. Now you might be interested in how many of these people discovered they were crypto Jews. With some of them, they were told. Their families kept it and had a tradition of telling a child by the time he reached puberty, roughly 13, the age of bar mitzvah. But many of them would not eat pork or shellfish. Many of them would not mix milk and meat, and they didn't know why.
They kept kosher?
Yeah.